Welcome to the Stuck Mic AvCast. AvCast about learning to fly, living to fly, and loving to fly. My name is Carl Valeri, and I'm going to be your host today. I'm also joined by Russ Wesleski. Hey, Russ, how's it going, man?
Hey, Carl, it's great to be here. I'm really excited about our topic today.
You know, I am really excited, too. Before I introduce our guest, one of the things I think is really important is to know that we all love flying in many different ways. But if you really want to, feel like a true bird and fly with, the wind rushing through your face, you really should try this paragliding. And that is actually really cool. I have a lot of friends that do it, and I can't wait to try it myself. And our guest today, Noah, is going to explain it's easier and less expensive than you might think to learn how to do paragliding. He runs the All American Paramotor in Harrah, Oklahoma, and not far from Oklahoma City, which is where Russ is today. Hey, Noah, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Noah, this is really cool. So one of the things that I was doing the other day is I went to a place called Lake Okeechobee in Florida. And as the sun was setting, there was a gentleman out doing paragliding. And he actually turned on these lights around the fan. And he stayed flying at night. And it was the coolest thing. And it really attracted all these people to see this person doing this amazing event and just loops and things like that. And it looked like loops from far away. But I was just shocked at how something so simple, a parachute, a little motor, could attract so many people. And that's kind of what we're going to talk about today. So before we get too far into it, I'll let you describe what is this thing called powered paragliding or paramotoring?
All right, well, so powered paragliding, also known as paramotor or PPG, it's part of the ultralight class of aviation. There's two methods. We can either foot launch or wheel launch. Got the younger guys that have good knees. They take off running. They run into the sky, essentially. And you got us older guys. I still foot launch, but I also like to wheel launch as well. You can sit down on a cart, like it's called a trike or a quad, and give it full throttle. You start rolling. The wing comes up behind you. You just fly off into the sky. I mean, it's a pretty simple thing. We jokingly say that we fly bed sheets and butt fans. It's a funny thing, but it's not far from the truth.
It's interesting because, like I told you, I was in Okeechobee, and a big thing in Okeechobee is airboats. And like I kind of liken it to airboats in the air, instead of on the lake. And I love doing the airboat. And I said, this is just kind of the next progression from airboats and just being able to see so many things from a really cool perspective. But it's something that I think we don't feel we can get into, or we have and I'm reticent too, because I'm kind of heavy, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. But people that do this are incredibly passionate. And why is that? No, like why are you so passionate about this?
Well, I think for the most part, most people, especially as children, we all have flying, whether it be a superhero or, flying airplanes or just being a bird, just having that experience of flying. For the most part, and we all know it, especially people that listen to this podcast, that aviation is relatively expensive. And it's quite, it's out of range for a lot of people. But just flying in general, period, that's a passion. It's absolutely amazing to be 1,200 plus above the ground. It's just amazing.
What's your favorite thing about it, doing the paragliding?
So for the paramotor stuff, my favorite thing is you're almost one with nature. I mean, you're completely exposed. You don't have a cockpit around you. You're not sitting inside of, a vehicle or something. You literally have every ounce of the wind blowing in your face. When there's bugs in the air, you're dodging them. Birds come right up next to you and fly with you. I mean, that's pretty amazing.
That is amazing. I just said paragliding, and that's a little bit different, isn't it? So,
there's, obviously similarities, but a little different.
And that's the other thing too, is that I'm thinking there's some people that are into paragliding that might want to get into paramotoring, and I'm assuming it's because your flight time could probably increase.
Absolutely. So obviously paragliders, they rely on certain weather. They need those thermals in order to keep them in the air. So that's what they're looking for. So they're they're in more of a volatile air situation, more bumpy. Whereas
Yeah.
us as powered paragliders, we have a motor on our back. We look for the nights on the smoothest days, which is usually first thing in the morning or last couple hours in the evening, and we get fly.
That's the best time to take anybody for a flight. Intro flights, we do them early in the day, late in the evening, that type of thing. Um, so this, as far as paragliding and paramotor, we're going to focus on paramotoring, obviously. You're no stranger to aviation. I mean, you actually are probably more experienced than most. Tell us a little bit about your background and the fact that you've been in the air before.
Yeah, so just like I said earlier, as a kid, I always wanted to be a pilot. So I have about 13 hours of seat time inside of a Cessna 172 and also Piper. Um, but I came from humble backgrounds. My parents did their best when I was younger to pay for those instructors, which we talked about is expensive, even more so today than it was then. But then life kind of got in the way. One excuse after another. I'm in the Army doing my thing with my family. I did do some paragliding while I was in Europe, stationed in Germany. I did get to experience that. But the second I found out you can strap a motor to your back to stay there, I was all in.
So if you're going to do that, strap a motor to your back, I'm assuming we're going to need a pilot certificate. So how do we go about that, and what type of certification is needed?
Well, so being that we're in the ultralight category, there's no certification required at all. Um, I usually tell people, like, the lawful answer is no, you don't need training. There's no certification. I tell people you can go buy gear from somebody. I wouldn't sell somebody gear that I knew wasn't trained for. But there are instructors out there that, money means more to them and they will sell it. But you can go buy gear, and we call them self-trained. Usually when you're self-training, you're usually spending more money because you're carrying your equipment up or you're hurting yourself. But coming to a USPPA certified school like myself that has the ratings and the experience to back it up, that's what you're paying for at that point. You're paying for the experience. You're paying for me to be in your ear explaining what to do and how to do it, especially when you take your first flight. Unlike, general aviation, where you have an instructor sitting right next to you where they can grab controls. In powered paragliding, I'm not sitting there with you. You are the pilot in command 100% of it. I'm just trying to talk through it and take the edge off quite a bit. So as long as you're listening to what I'm saying to you, we'll get you on the ground, dude.
Yeah, it's definitely that way for me, Carl. So the reason I'm here, of course, is because I went to NOAA to teach me how to do this whole thing, this paramotoring thing. We had actually seen, my daughter and I had seen some people doing this out at the field behind her school a few years ago, and I thought that looked pretty cool. So then when we found out that NOAA was setting up shop just east of town, we went and checked him out, and he's right. You could teach yourself, but having gone through some training, there's no way I would want to teach myself. No way. I mean, just the basic, handling and reactions and stuff. It's different from an airplane. That's something that, might have caused me to say, "Oh, I'm an experienced pilot. I don't need this. This is gonna be easy, right?" Well, no, it's not hard, but it's different. It's totally different than airplanes. So, yeah, I definitely wanted the training, and I can't imagine someone going up there on their own with just watching YouTube videos or something. I know people do it, but man, not for me and my family. I tell you that.
So, Russ, did you and Noah can comment on this? You went out there and you did was it a tandem flight? Is that how that worked?
I didn't do a tandem flight. I don't think you were set up, or maybe I'm too heavy. I don't remember the rules on
No,
that.
so
But I didn't do one. But
yeah, at the time I was still waiting on my my tandem exemption through the FAA. So I could have done tandems, but I'm about following the rules. So I had to wait for my exemption, which I do now. I've had since September. So definitely set up to do tandems now.
So walk us through this process of how you actually learn how to fly this. I mean, I've seen people do it on the beach, and a little bit different there. But So do you start with a parachute? I mean, just kind of walk us through that process.
So, I mean, everybody learns their own way. I'm a doer. And I know most people like to just do, instead of hearing me talk, do it. So I immediately get you put on a wing, um, where we do some basic ground handling, learning how to kite, doing forward launches, then progress reverse launches. So at the beginning of it, essentially what we're doing is we talk about the wing, what it is, what the parts are, how to hook into it for both forward and a reverse. What kind of winds are we looking for? Setting your wing from the ground, all those things. Then we get to actually doing those uh, forward and reverse launches where you're going to start running and pull the wing up above your head. And you're simulating the fact that you are now taxiing. You have a paramotor on your back, you give throttle to the air. So what you're trying to do here is control the wing above your head, keep it stable so it's not oscillating back and forth, which can hurt you if you let it oscillate onto it.
Yeah, I'd say that was. I mean, it's the most fundamental skills of the thing is learning how to control the wing when you're on the ground and getting up to speed and being able to launch. And that's what really probably, I know I can dispute this, I guess, but it seemed to me that's what took most of the time. Is just learning how to control that thing. Once you get the control of that, the rest just kind of fell into place, at least for me.
My instructor used to say that we're going to kite until we're bored of it. Now, obviously, I'm not going to have you kite until you're bored of it. Kiting is an essential skill. Even once you start flying, the best kiters are the best. Those are the guys that put in the time. That's where you can practice specific things on your wing while you're safely on the ground, like pulling your A's to do big ears or doing a V-line stall or whatever the case is. You don't want to go up to 1,000, 2,000 feet. Let me just pull this A-line, see what happens. So being able to practice that stuff on the ground is it's key.
Russ, I know Russ is in pretty good shape and all. And we talked about not needing a pilot certificate, but how about the medical? How about the medical side of this? I mean, I'm a little chunkier now, and I don't run quite as fast as I used to. What what would you say to somebody that's getting started? I mean, what would be like a minimum type of a medical, standard to get out there?
So, again, the lawful answer being ultralight, there's no medical requirements. However, depends on if you're doing foot launch or wheel launch. If you're dedicated, like I'm not doing nothing until I want to run into the air. That's it. Well, at that point, I ask you, okay, well, can you do an open sprint for 20 yards? If you can't do that, if that hurts, you're probably not going to be cut out for a foot launch. Can you jump off to a 2-foot or 3-foot object and, knees don't? If that's the case, again, foot launching is probably not for you. But you're not just locked in. You can wheel launch just the same. So wheel launch is the same concept. You're sitting down. So someone that might not have the best knees, they can get a trike or a quad, and they can learn how to kite their wing with their trike or the quad, and then take their first flight and get certified through me as an instructor. Yay. I will launch. So, like Russ has a PPG2 rating foot launch. He could come back to my school and go through the wheel his wheel launch.
And the different ratings, by the way, they're set up and kind of administered through the U.S. Paragliding Association. That's what we're talking about, USPPA, that it's doing that. And by the way, if you're listening right now, usppa.org will have that in the show notes as far as where you can find that. Really good information on the website about how to get started.
I think if, the comparison I like to make with the USPPA is for anybody who's done scuba diving, right? It's another, kind of self-regulated activity, industry regulated, right? There's not a lot of laws about scuba diving. And whether, you went through like a PADI program or a NAUI program, and they have their open water certifications and, mixed gases and that kind of stuff. But it's all kind of voluntary, right? Same thing with the USPPA rating system. I went through the program with NOAA, and there's, I'm at what you call kind of like the private pilot level, sort of.
Yeah.
But and I can go further, and I will. I plan to, but I'm having fun right now. And but all that is definitely highly recommended, of course.
So, there's another resource that was on the web, but I think it's really good, and that's actually Noah's website. And that's where I learned about this, is allamericanparamotor.com. And he has that in there, all the different information about how to get started, also about Noah. And did a really good job, by the way, of explaining everything. It's a really good website. So I would highly recommend going there first before you get in the weeds of the USPPA.org, which is a good organization. But the other thing that he does is not just explains it and all that we're talking about here, but also talks about like the costs and things like that. And there's a lot of variables within the cost, especially if you're going to own one. So let's talk a little bit about that. How much does it normally cost somebody to get started?
So each school has their own set price. They kind of range. What I've seen here in Oklahoma is most of the schools here are over $3,000, $3,000 plus. My school is $2,000, and that gets you from not knowing anything about paramotoring to your PPG to grading, foot launch or wheel launch. As far as equipment is concerned, some schools offer equipment after the use. I've been lucky that I have the equipment. Russ was able to use a paramotor when he started, that he since now owns. So, but paramotor, when you're looking at a new paramotor, I tell people that they range anywhere between $5,000 and $10,000, with the average about $7,500 for a brand new, decked out paramotor, has everything on it, ready to fly. Then you also got your wing. Go ahead, Russ.
Yeah, the wing.
Oh,
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so that's just the paramotor, but we also have to have a wing, right? So the motor is just the motor, but the wing, they range anywhere between $3,000 to $5,000. But generally you're going to spend close to $4,000 on a brand new. But I always tell people also, if money is an issue, which again, I mean, everyone's not made of money, so if money is an issue, I always suggest that you buy a brand new wing and you look for a used motor. The motor in the end doesn't really mean too much. It can fall off my back. We're just a paraglider at that. It's not going to fall out of the sky. It's glider. Find a thermal, push myself back up in the air.
So that's great advice, by the way. When the wing, are there different designs for the type of flying you're looking to do?
Yeah, absolutely. So these wings, first of all, none of them are rated in the U.S. because none of them are made in the U.S. But every one of them have a European. Well, I'll not say every one of them, but most of them have a European rating, which is what you would want to look for. They're usually Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, and Delta. An A-rated wing is usually a beginner-rated wing. Then all the way up to a D-rated wing, which would extra wings. But each wing, even at that particular rating, like an A-rated wing, they come in different sizes based off your weight. So like you mentioned earlier, being a big around 40 pounds, I want to have a bigger wing than what Russ is. It could be the exact same wing, but my meters can be bigger than his.
So a good reason to lose weight might cost you less or get a better wing. That's for sure. So Russ, you actually went out and bought the equipment. Yeah. What did you do? What do you do with like storage and that type of thing?
Well, so it doesn't take much space to store it. I mean, so as Noah alluded to, so I did exactly what he said, the second route he suggested. I bought a brand new wing, and then I bought a used paramotor, which happened to be his. So he was looking for a new one. The one I actually did my first solo in, I bought it from him, and so that worked out perfectly for me. So but storage, I mean, if fits in the garage, it's just on a little work stand. The motor and the wing is just in a bag. Transporting it in the back of your truck. What was it? We had one guy disassemble the motor and fit it in a Piper Cherokee or something.
Yeah, I was going to say that. He has everything in the back of a Piper, and then he also, same guy, put it in the back of his Tesla. So
in the Tesla, the back of Tesla.
The truck of a Tesla.
Now, obviously, that's you have a little more setup if you're reassembling the basically the hoop part, right? So, but if you have a pickup truck, I mean, it fits in the back of the pickup truck, and it's easy transport.
So you take that big, the fan protection, whatever you call it there, the screen, and then the propeller you could take apart and then put it away, I'm assuming?
You can.
Interesting. That sounds really cool because you can go just about anywhere with it. And the one thing that's really exciting to me is watching some of the videos on YouTube of these people going out there into the areas that you never would be able to see otherwise unless you're in the air. And it'd be a lot tougher to see in an airplane than in a paramotor. And that's where even going out, like for me again on Lake Okeechobee, I go there a lot and love watching them out there. You can go spot fish, and it's a lot different than being right there on the ground. There's the other thing too I think is cool is at nighttime when the guys put these the LED lights around, and that is really fascinating. So tell me a little bit about that as far as flying at night. Are there any regulations as far as night flying?
So we aren't legally allowed to fly at night. By law, we can fly 30 minutes prior, up to 30 minutes prior to legal sunrise, and we have to be on the ground 30 minutes after legal sunset. Having said that, though, before sunrise and even after sunset, you have to have some kind of lighting system on that can go somewhere miles. And so most people just have a strobe light on, which is, that's easy and that's perfect. Just a strobe light. But guys like me, I have the lit up hoop on my paramotor. I usually have the American flag lighting on it. So, but
That's cool. I love watching them at Sun and Fun, where they do the night show and they
yeah,
go up and they fly around. I guess they get exemption for that, but
they do. Yeah.
it is just the coolest thing. Actually, the guy next to me, he actually had a school where he did that, temporary school here in Lakeland. But that is the neatest thing for people to get into because there's people of all different ages that are actually able to do that. Again, I was a little reticent because I'm a little bit older but I'm not in that bad of shape. I can actually do all those things you just told me. I can run, 2-3 miles. So I think I can handle it. And I think most people can. I think sometimes we do that. We say to ourselves, there's no way I can do that. But the other part of that is that there's people like myself who live surrounded by water and lakes. And one of the things I got nervous about is the fact that I see these people going out over the water is what if I wound up going into the water with this big heavy thing strapped to my back? But there's certain safety devices, right, that you have that will prevent you from sinking.
Yeah. So drowning used to be the number one killer for paramotors. It's been recently surpassed, at least surpassed low acro. That's a little bit conversation. But as far as water crossing, especially as an instructor and you're talking to students, I suggest that you never cross over a body of water any lower than you could glide the shore. So that goes back to understanding what your wing is when you're training with it, knowing what your glide ratio is, how high do you need to be in case you have a motor out. When you're flying a paramotor, I would assume it's the same with an airplane. You always got to make sure you have an out. So I'm not going to go, 4 miles off the coast out in the middle of the ocean and be flying around out there because there's no way I can glide back. Now there's safety precautions like you mentioned, flotation devices that hook to your harness. And most of them are self-inflating once they hit the water. But yeah, that's going to give you a little bit more time, keep your paramotor afloat. But I still don't recommend flying directly over large bodies of water without being able to make it back to shore.
Yeah, kind of like in an airplane. A lot of people don't go out too far, but they do have their flotation devices with them, and I get that. But now, going back to those costs, you can actually get into, and I've seen people online that really get into this. And so what would be, say, for like an expensive motor and wing? I mean, if you were going to go all out, how much would it cost you?
Well, so if you're going to do a foot launch, like I said, paramotors can run up to almost $10,000 for a foot launch. If you want to get a dedicated trike, we're talking about $25,000 for a dedicated trike, like my tandem trike. That's dedicated. Most of these paramotors have trike attachment, where most brands make some sort of attachment that you can put on the bottom of your foot motor, trike, and that'll be your cheapest, most affordable option. stripe.
So if people are looking to get into this, though, so the price really isn't that bad. This sounds expensive to some people, but compare it to getting your pilot certificate, it's pretty
Right.
darn cheap. And not only that, compare it to how much you spend on just renting airplanes in a year. I know, Russ, you and I, we probably spend more than that on just going out there and having fun.
Well, yeah, I think the comparison here is that the total cost of the paramotor and the wing and even the training, depending on what you purchase, can be about the same as you would pay just in rental fees to get your private pilot certificate, and then you don't have an airplane anyway, and you're in for that, and there you go fly. So as far as affordable aviation, I mean, I don't think you can beat it, really.
No, absolutely. As a matter of fact, Russ, there's actually, and we talked about this offline, there are scholarships actually for paramotors, but not so much in the U.S. that I know of. And Noah, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but overseas in the UK, there's an organization that has them. We actually have them in that scholarships guide that we actually have, and you can get one of those guides for free if you're looking to, maybe if you're going over to the UK, maybe to go fly, or if you're in the UK listening, and that's at stuckmicavcast.com/free. And we're making those scholarships available for free because of our sponsor, and that's the Stratus Financial. Stratus Financial helps people actually take those dreams and take them into flight, and enables people to actually become primarily people that are looking at careers and becoming pilots there, but they help just about everybody. And they help people that are looking to maybe even consolidate the loans that they have so that they can continue their flying. And you can find them at stratus.finance. And they're really good people, and they're really easy to talk to. But if you're dreaming of flying, if you're looking at even the paramotors, go to stuckmicavcast.com/free and use the coupon code STRATUS to get that free scholarships guide. There's lots of other stuff in there too, but I do want to shout out to them and realize it's funny because there's scholarships for everything. I'm excited and hoping that the USPPA will come out with a scholarship. I don't know if anybody's had that conversation yet. Have they, Noah?
I'm not sure if anybody's had that kind of conversation. I would like to have.
Absolutely, because think about this. I mean, this is a great entry point for somebody into aviation that's young. I mean, it's not that expensive. I mean, even, if you're doing gliding, you're looking at spending similar types of money, depending on what you're doing. And it really is wonderful, especially for like people in the STEM. And that's, I think, where I think it could start.
I agree.
Yeah,
Yeah, one of the things that I'm asked sometimes, when I'm out or people see the thing hanging on the back of my truck is, is it safe? Because they kind of look like a little bit of a rickety contraption, I guess, sometimes. So is it safe? Which certainly Noah can talk about. I mean, you are basically under essentially a parachute, right, the whole time. So talk a little bit about the safety of that, Noah.
Well, so I get asked that quite a bit too. I'm afraid I'm just gonna fall out of the sky. Well, it's a paraglider. I mean, it's a wing. So I would say the only characteristics of a parachute it has is the look. But a paraglider has no parachutal aspects to it. Meaning, if God stuck the wind off and there was no air flowing through it, you would just drop out of the sky just like you would in an airplane. However, that's not going to happen unless we're talking about the second coming. But, like I said earlier, if my motor stops or even falls off my back, God forbid, I don't think that ever happened. But if it did, I'm just a glider. I'm not going to take a flap. I'm just going to glide around. For the most part, if I'm a powered paraglider, maybe you don't have the skills necessary to be thermals paraglider. So you're just going to find a place to land and you're going to aim for it. You're going to just take yourself down and land just like you would if there was a motor running on your back. No different.
Yeah, I had that happen to me, as you know, Noah, maybe a month or two ago. The motor didn't fall off, but for some unknown reason, I was descending at idle anyway, and the motor quit. It just stopped. And I didn't have enough time to try to restart it. Well, there was a cow pasture there, and I landed in the cow pasture, just totally fine. Checked things out, started the motor back up and took back off, and nobody even missed me. So I mean, it was my first time, having it happen. and it was a complete non-event. I mean, it was like, oh, okay, well, I guess I got that out of the way. Okay, now, yeah, moving on. So yeah, it was a non-event. It wasn't anything because, like I said, you're going to land at idle anyway. So I just landed my normal landing method, and it was fine.
Yep. Yep. There's no different. Now for safety aspect of it, I mean, if you did have, if you got yourself out in a situation with, maybe you did some midday flying without the proper training to back it up, and you got into a thermal and it caused, paragliders, they deal with a lot more wing collapses because they're in that fall. So let's say you put yourself in that situation where you got that fall and you had a wing collapse while you're on the paramotor. Most of us, at least any decent instructor, would recommend that you have a reserve parachute. So I carry a reserve on me. I know Russ has one. I think every one of my students has a reserve. I don't think there's anything that does not. But yeah, the reserve parachute is there for that reason. I've been flying powered paragliders for over 4 years. I've been jumping out of airplanes, most of my career in the Army. Knock on wood, and I've never touched.
So the reserve, is that just like a round chute? Is that what that is?
Yeah, they can be round, square. They also have kind of like Dorito shaped ones. I can't remember. It's like Rigolo style reserve. There are some that are steerable and some are not. But that also goes into price. Whenever I'm talking to someone when it comes to cost, let's get you a reserve that's going to get you to the ground safely. I don't need you to worry about steering your reserve per se, because, if you throw your reserve, even if you throw your reserve on accident, you have to start bringing your main wings. You got to start pulling the lines, get your main in so they don't oppose each other.
So that's a safety issue, getting the reserve pilot or parachute. But what other things that you can think of, maybe 1, 2, or 3 items that would make sure that we stay safe as a paramotor pilot?
So I always recommend sturdy over the ankle boots or shoes, especially if you're foot launching. Just like Russ, landing in a field somewhere, a cow pasture, whatever it is, there might be a gopher hole that you just didn't see. If you had tennis shoes or flip flops on, which there's guys that fly like that, you step in that, you might bust your ankle, right? Where if you had sturdy over the ankle boots, it might tweak it a little bit, but you'll be fine. The next thing would definitely be a helmet of sorts, which I actually have my helmet here. Just a PPG rated helmet. Some people use bicycle helmets, which I wouldn't recommend. Find a decent little PPG rated helmet, and it'll keep the dog safe. There's gonna be times when you're trying to do a forward launch, maybe a gust pulls you over backwards. We call it turtling. Or you're coming into land and you misjudge your flare or whatever. Just don't want to hit your head without any type of protection. Obviously some kind of eye protection, whether it be clear lens glasses, goggles, whatever. And the last thing would be gloves. Those lines on those paragliders, they're like a Dyneema with like a nylon sheeting over them. And anybody that knows anything about, that kind of line, it can cut you good. And if you're getting a situation where you got to start pulling line into you so that you get your wing deflated, if you didn't have gloves on, it could tear your hands up really bad.
So, basically a lot of what you're talking about is equipment. And, we talked about training, obviously, but how about when you're talking landing? I'm kind of curious in my brain trying to figure out what kind of speeds are you looking at when you're actually landing?
So it depends. Most of the time we want to do a headwind with wind to our face, not a tailwind. You're going to be going. But that's where a similarity comes in with parachutes, pulling what we call a flare. Essentially, you're pulling them straight down, and you're dumping that energy from that out forward and stopping it forward motion. Now you want to do that at the right distance from the ground so that you kind of level out, set you right down like you're standing up. But yeah, it's every wing, like we mentioned earlier, every wing is different. An A-rated wing is going to move slower than a B or a C. A D-rated wing is going to be really cooking. The speed all comes from the wing. It has nothing to do with your motor. It doesn't matter if you have an Atom 80 on your back or a Poster 85. It doesn't matter. The motor itself is just your climb rate. The wing has everything to do with your speed. So I get students sometimes like, "Hey, I'm a rock junkie or whatever. I want a really big motor. Motor doesn't matter. It's the wing that matters."
Gotcha. So Russ, as far as the differences that you've noticed in flying an airplane and flying this, paramotor, what's the biggest thing that stands out in your mind?
Well, one of the things is kind of what Noah just mentioned, actually, is that you're always flying at the same speed. I mean, whatever it is, like 25 miles an hour-ish, somewhere in that range, 30 miles an hour, I guess. But I mean, that's the speed you fly at. You can adjust that a little bit. There's trim settings and stuff where you can change your speed a little bit. But for the most part, you're flying at a set speed because that's the speed the wing flies at. Like you said, the motor, more throttle you climb, less throttle you descend. But I caught myself, early on, if say Noah's up there ahead of me flying, I'm like, oh, I'm going to go catch him. Let me give it some gas. Well, it doesn't really work that way. I'm doing the same exact speed. I'm just going up now. So, when you're in private pilot training and you're coming down final and the instructors talk about, it's power for altitude and pitch for speed and this kind of stuff. And it seems all reverse. Well, that's kind of what it is in here. It's power for altitude and that's it. Like I said, you have a little bit of speed adjustment, but nowhere on the order of an airplane.
Do you normally do power off landings or is it powered?
Yeah. Well, go ahead.
Well, when it comes to students, I usually have students in the beginning, especially their first 5 or so flights, come in with power off. And the reason I do that is because they're less likely when they butt land to break prop or something. Because, a student is probably going to butt land, meaning that they'll come in and do their flare, they'll touch their feet on the ground, and then, they'll just retract their landing gear, aka their legs, and they'll just, sit on the ground. It's usually not a big deal. Turn the motor off, not really a big deal. As I start seeing, hey, their landings look really good, and I don't have any real issues with it. Let's leave the motor on, coming to land with power. The motor idling, but still running. The good thing about that is if you ever have to quickly pull out and do a go around because maybe an animal ran out right in the middle of your landing spot or a person or whatever, it gives you an opportunity to get up out of it.
Yeah. There are a couple other things that I kind of noticed from flying an airplane. One is you got these brake lines, and I caught myself early on kind of, you can't even really describe it, but like trying to pull back to climb and this kind of stuff, which isn't really how you do it. I mean, you do get a little bit of altitude change as you pull your brakes, but trying to use them not for the function that they're intended, I suppose, in the paramotors because it felt natural to me as an airplane pilot. But I just in general, and we kind of alluded to this already, it's way more than, I mean, if you've flown in an open cockpit biplane, right, and you got all the wind blowing through, that's nothing, compared to this.
Really?
I mean, there's no cockpit. There's nothing. It's you and nature, right? So I have flown through some swarms of bugs. That wasn't really that pleasant, but Noah said, birds flying alongside. And I have not been, doing this for only really a few months. And I've flown alongside birds and, accidentally scared deer on the ground Sunday. But, the cows look up at you and, and you're just really a lot more with everything going on in nature because you're so low often. I mean, you can fly these things high, but I fly other airplanes high, all day long. But, I mean, you're flying these at, 50 feet, 5 feet, 100 feet, down low. And so you can see fish swimming in the rivers and all that kind of stuff. It's
cool.
Amazing. It's beautiful. And you're flying so slow that, I mean, the turn radius, right? I mean, turn radius on a 172 at like a instrument speed is like half a mile, right? Turn radius on a paramotor is like, what, I don't know, 50 feet or something. I mean, you just turn the thing around and you're there. You go check out that fish again, you're still there. So it's really pretty amazing. It's a whole different type of flying. And I mean, I'm so glad that Noah started, offering us training nearby so I could do this, but it's just been fascinating for me. Some negative transfer of training, what do they call that in the training business, Carl? A negative habit transfer or something like that with between the airplanes and this, but I think I picked it up pretty quick, so it's been fun.
Yeah, I remember Russ coming in for his first landing. I'm telling him trying to guide him to me. But in his mind, he's on a runway approach. It doesn't matter which way the wind comes. He just needs to approach straight ahead. No, Russ, you land to the wind, so come to me, man.
Yeah, I
So
was trying to
that was
line
one
up
of the,
with we were landing at a high school track in the infield there. And I think I was trying to mentally line up. Oh, I got to go straight down the runway, kind of. Well, that's what I'm used to. You know, Wind correction, the speeds. I mean, you're only cruising at like 25 miles an hour, right? So any crosswind, I mean, you're flying, sideways through the air, basically way more than an airplane. So um, the glide ratio is a lot steeper, than an airplane. So picking out my landing point, I'm still working on that. I was working on that the other day a bit too, Noah, was where am I going to land, in idle from where I am right now? And pretty much I was usually coming up long because, come short, whatever way. I got it wrong anyway, versus what I thought.
So where do you pick a spot to fly out of? How do you find a spot?
well, once you're trained, or I guess even if you're not, like be crazy and go do it on your own. Recommend finding a wide open area that's free of high power lines or anything like that, especially your first 20, 30, 40 flights as you're still in the learning process of understanding what your plane is doing, what you're doing. You don't want to be worried about, hey, there's a 100-foot oak tree at the end of on the other side of my field that I got to turn around or steer around as I'm taking off. So big wide open area would be the best thing. As you gain experience and understanding and basically the experience, your spot smaller and smaller. Obviously to a point now it's dangerous. Football track, high school football field and track around football field. Those are really good, especially newer guys as they're progressing, learning. Because obviously the faster you pull your wing up and the faster you throttle, the faster you back, the faster you fly. So that's a good way to make this, but still be safe in this progression of events that you need to do. But let's make them faster.
To find out more about this, though, you started this website, which was really good, laying out what you need to do. And I love the pictures. They can find you at allamericanparamotor.com. And if they do have questions, I'm assuming they can reach out to you there.
Absolutely. And they can even do it on Facebook. They send me a message on Messenger. It's the same thing on Facebook. I'm happy to answer questions. I do all.
Awesome.
One of the things I had a note I'd written, I'm sorry, we should have gotten this earlier, was another question I get is that thing looks like it weighs a lot, I mean,
Yeah.
and they weigh, 50 to 70 pounds or so, depending on size and whatever. And, but I'll let Noah answer this, but Noah, what's your answer to, oh man, it looks like it weighs a ton. I can't carry that thing on my back.
So, I mean, just like you just mentioned, it's, 50 to 70, maybe 80 pounds, depending on how much fuel you put inside of it. Whether you have, what kind of, you have an Atom 80 or most are 185, whatever the case is, the weight difference is there. But you're only carrying that weight as long as it takes you to put on your back, walk to your wing, hook in. As soon as you launch, get that wing above your head, it immediately starts taking the weight. And you get lighter and lighter and lighter until
Yeah. So
So
when
this
you're
is
actually flying, you're not feeling the weight at all. Yeah.
when you're walking out there, though. It's strapped to your back, and was it feel like you're going to fall backwards? Is that what it's more
No,
like? Your center of gravity? No.
they're pretty good, but excuse me, it's essentially like wearing a pack.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, so if you can wear a backpack, you can probably do this, and also if you're in somewhat decent shape, you can do it. I mean, I think most people can. There are some people that can't. I'm assuming, and like people that have maybe some challenges or disabilities. Is there any opportunity for them to do any type of flying in the paramotor world?
So like I mentioned earlier, I do offer tandem flights here at my school. I think I'm the only tandem certified instructor. I'm not sure if the guys down south, I knew right here. For my tandems, I use a trike. So you will be sitting down in front of me. Your feet will be up. There's no physical exertion on your part when it comes to tandem flight. Just going up there. It's not just a joyride. We're going to go up there and we're going to talk about how to control the paramotor. There's going to be some type of education involved with it.
Oh, cool. No, this has been some great information, man. And I tell you, I'm excited to get out there and do some flying. I know there's some limitations as far as geography is concerned, but you can find people that are local going to that website, usppa.org, and you can find local flight schools. If you're ever in Oklahoma City area, go check out Noah, and I'm sure he'll be more than willing to take you up on an introductory flight. You can find that right on the website there. And of course, Russ might even want to go flying with you. Because Russ,
Yeah,
it
I'll
seems
come
like
on
you're
out.
pretty active
Absolutely.
now.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. It just takes calm day. And
Calm
yeah,
day, absolutely.
calm day.
So there are some limits as far as weather is concerned, but that makes sense. I mean, we usually don't like to fly in really bad weather anyway. We're doing this because we love to fly, and that's what's most important. Again, Noah, thanks so much for joining us today. Again, anything else you wanted to tell us as far as, again, the website one more time?
Yeah. So again, allamericanparamotor.com is my website. On there, I talk about what paramotoring is, about myself, different types of equipment. I don't offer wing and motors sell on my site because they're not a one size fit all. We have to have a discussion together as far as what type of flying you want to do, so on and so forth. I need to know what your weight is and so on. And then I'll give you, hey, these wings are a good fit for you. Now it's up to you. Like, you want this design, you want this design, you want this color, that color. You want to spend as little as possible, you want to spend as much as possible. That's that. But the last thing I would say about the training aspect of it is, if you live on the coast, train on the coast. Nothing wrong. If you live inland, like Oklahoma or any state that don't have a large ocean attached to it, I recommend that you train inland because we deal with rotor off trees and stuff. Whereas when you're down on the beach training, it's nice laminar air. So it's not hard to kite a wing. I mean, the air is right there for you and it's steady. Whereas Russ could probably give you his opinion on kiting and rotor conditions, where you got to actually learn how to keep that stable above you, and it takes work. So learning how to fly, if I go down to the beach, learn how to kite, and then I live in Oklahoma and I come back here, I'm going to be really mad at myself or an instructor why I can't keep this wing above my head, because you didn't train here. You don't understand the rotor that goes when you're sitting on a beach.
That's some great advice. Gosh, again, Russ, thanks for all of your comments on this and sharing what you did as far as learning how to fly. And I'm sure you're going to continue to go out there and fly these paramotors, and want to hear more about your adventures.
Yeah, it's been a heck of a lot of fun, Carl. And like I said already, I mean, I've been flying for 30 something years, and all in airplanes and such. So this is a whole different type of flying, and it's been fascinating and amazing and something new. And I'm always up for learning something new. So yeah, it's been great. I plan to continue this. And,
well, I appreciate you.
And like you were talking, when my knees no longer support it, well, I'll go to the trike.
Go to the trike, absolutely. Yeah. Well, Russ, I appreciate you bringing Noah on to talk about
Absolutely.
this. And Noah, I appreciate what you do, as far as, moving that passion forward in aviation, because there's many different ways to get up in the air. Paramotoring is one of them. It gets you really close to nature. A lot of people ride Harleys for the bugs in the teeth kind of feel. You can get that with a paramotor, a big engine in the back, and see a really different perspective. I'm really excited to get up there and go flying, and I can't wait to go try this out. I'll go fly up to Oklahoma City or try one out here locally. It isn't that much to get into it, but everybody I talk to gets hooked, and they say you're going to love it probably within the first couple of flights. And you're going to say to yourself, and this is most of the folks that I know that have done it, I should have done this earlier, because this truly is what flying is all about. Again, Noah, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Well, if you're looking for more information about how to go out and paramotor, it's really simple. allamericanparamotor.com. Noah's done a great job on the website describing how you can get involved, what it takes to fly, how much it's going to cost you. But most importantly, for me, the website actually shares that passion through the photos. And that's something that is really appealing. That's the aesthetic that appeals to all of us when we actually like to go flying. And I really like to encourage anybody who's listening or watching right now to get out there and just go click on the website, allamericanparamotor.com, find out more about this. Check out some YouTube. There's all sorts of YouTube channels out there, great Instagram accounts that can show you really cool pictures about what you're going to see when you get out there paramotoring. Well, folks, we really appreciate your listening to us today. I really encourage you to get out there and try something new in aviation. And try out this paramotoring, or just do some research. And next time you're in Oklahoma City or wherever you can find a school, give it a shot. Go for that introductory flight. I'm sure you'll enjoy it. We'll talk to you next episode. Safe flying out there.